So as you can see, we're working on the Micra today, and we're going to fix some MOT fails. The first MOT fail is near side front brake. Near side is the side nearest to the curb, not the side nearest to traffic, which is this wheel here. Near side front brake caliper binding. Well, actually it's just brakes binding, so we don't really know what the problem is. And I would say, yeah, that's binding. So we'll whip the wheel off and see what's going on. There we go. So we're just going to remove this caliper completely. It is 21 years old, so if it has given up the ghost, I think we can forgive it for that. Method. Oh, that was quite tight, that was. Right, see our slide pin? Well, it's definitely not our top slide pin that is stuck. That can happen. Can also be brake pads getting stuck. That can happen. Let's try our bottom slide pin now. See if that one there is also freely moving. Yeah, that one there moves super freely as well, so that's not the cause of it sticking, which means more likely than anything else right now, it's probably going to be the caliper is stuck. It's not a done thing though. It could still be the just the brake pads that are stuck or something. There we go. Go. Ooh, don't want to lose the little copper washer, so we'll hang on to that. Tap that out. And now we can push our caliper off. Ooh. The brake pads are a little bit, they still move pretty easily though, they're not that stuck, not stuck enough to like cause the brake to bind up that much. So this is where you have to make a judgment call. This caliper will rewind. I can force it in, but I have to use a lot of effort. But it will go all the way back in. However, there's no hydraulic pressure in this. The line has been disconnected, so it should rewind unbelievably easily. I could refit this, but my suspicion is that it will certainly bind up again. So I think what we're going to do for now is just fit a new caliper. Obviously at some point we're going to need some new brake pads. These are getting a little bit low, but for the time being we'll probably leave them in. Or maybe we won't, I don't know. Maybe I will replace them actually. So I also need to do some brake lines on the rear. So I want my clamp back. The brake pads that I need haven't arrived yet, so I'm not going to service everything up here yet. But I am just going to get it bolted up roughly in place for now and move on and prioritise. And just so that it doesn't fall on the floor, I'm just going to put in just the top bolt there by a few threads. That'll do. And just tighten that up a little bit so I don't lose brake fluid everywhere. Brilliant. Now this disc does have some very light scoring on it, but I can't feel it with my finger, I can just see it. And the lip is very, very tiny. I can just feel it. But you can have a millimetre lip on this, and this is nowhere near that. So this disc is safe to be reused, but what you do want to just double check is that when you get your brake pads and stuff fitted in there, you can either check it with a run out gauge, or you can just spin the disc and just hear if it catches the pads evenly after you've hit the brake a few times, and that should just give you an indication of if the disc is warped. But if you wanted to check for sure whether you have a warp disc, because it's got hot, this colour here does indicate that it has gotten hot at some point, then you would kind of really need a run out gauge to check that properly. But we have our ways and means of getting things done. So when we get the pads, we'll get this finished off, and now we'll move on to the rear. Well, things have gone a little awry. It's so high at the back I can't actually get my jack underneath it to lift it up, and I need to take the wheels off to do the rear flexi hoses. Well, I don't really need to, but it's going to make my life an awful lot easier. So what I'm going to do is, even though this caliper isn't fitted correctly yet, so I'll have no brakes, just going to, they're barely tight, but that's fine. What I'll do is I'll drop the front on the ground, and then I'll just let it roll forward. I'm not really that worried. That is uphill, so I'm not worried that the car's going to go anywhere it shouldn't. And it has a mechanical handbrake, so just literally at the speed that I can push, I can just yank the handbrake and it'll stop. But you may decide not to do the crazy things that I do. So we've still got the front on the nice ground, so we can do that caliper in a bit. And now we've got the back lifted and on stands, so that we can get to these rear flexies. So this is a great example of brake pipe that needs replacing. You can see it's all corroded and pitted here on the surface, and then you can see up here, you can see there's a big split in that one. That is ready to go any minute now. So that's really, really bad. That's dangerous, in fact. Real dangerous. So we'll definitely get that out. Now, you can use an open end spanner to break these loose, and sometimes they break loose just like that easy. Sometimes they don't, they just want to round out. And in that situation, I would use one of these on a ratchet, which is basically a little square. You can also buy just flared wrenches. You can buy spanners like this, but I quite like these. I just find that they're a bit more meaty and they're not as likely to spread on the end as the spanners are. But that's basically how I break them loose, but you just want to be careful. When I tried this one here at the back, you can see with the spanner, it just instantly started to round it out. And obviously we can see here this brake pipe here, we're also going to have to make a new one there as well. So there's quite a lot of brake fabrication to do here, and these are major safety issues. If any one of these failed, you could completely lose your brakes, and unfortunately you won't realise you've lost your brakes until you try to use them, which is when you need to stop. So we're definitely going to get all of this sorted to get this thing roadworthy again. So it's always good to try and remove the pipes without breaking them if you can, because then you can obviously just copy its exact length. And when removing these little six-sided spanners can be great if you can get it on there. It's very, very handy, and you're much less likely to round it out. Like you can see here where I tried it with the open end. See that corner? Started to round out. And these are good quality ones. They've got like a flank drive on it to try and prevent that, and they're usually pretty good, but when it's rusted away, there's only so much that a good spanner can help. Sometimes you just can't beat having a 6-point on there. And now we just need to remove this one here, which feels like it may want to just snap, but we'll do our best to get it out neatly. You want to be watching with these as well, that when you're trying to break it loose, you see how the nut is moving but the line isn't. sometimes they get stuck on the line and then the line starts twisting. Be careful, especially if you're not actually planning on rebuilding them. Sometimes you might want to reuse the line because it looks okay, so you want to watch that. Okay, try not to smack it anywhere, and then our brake line pulls out like that. So just going to pull that out for the 1000th time, put this cap back on there, there we go, and that is our old flexi out. You can see there, that big tear in it, aches. All the rubber sleeving that protects it is, well, it's gone really, isn't it? It's so badly perished. So, good thing we're replacing that. So, our brake line that we need to replace goes up and over the fuel tank, and then it goes to here. And when we wiggle it, we can see it moving on the other side. The other ones, no movement at all. So, we are going to try and remove this from the proportioning valve. Was it really that easy? Or did it just round out some? Didn't even think we were on it properly. Let's try that again. Oh, that definitely slipped there. It's going to be a tricky customer, this one. It's always the ones in the most awkward spaces. Yeah, that's just rounding. Try and get it from a different angle. I think we've got it moving. I think it's just, unfortunately, a case of whether it'll come all the way out. I have to cut that one, I'm afraid. So in the proportioning valve, I've just put in there a little blanking plug. It's basically just an old bit of line that I've cut off something else, and it fits these threads, so I've just wound it in there to stop all the brake fluid from escaping, and it is doing a tremendous job. And then the line that comes up into here, you basically just have to bend it up and then you pull it out this way. So you pull it out past the proportioning valve there, and that's how it comes out. And now that we've got them out, we can get on with making our new brake lines. This side here is already finished. You see there's nothing wrong with these brake lines. Nice and clean, like a minor bit of corrosion, but not like literally about to explode. And obviously this flexi there was just as bad as the one on the other side. This is the new one we're looking at here. So that's one side done. Now we'll just finish off making the brake pipes on the other side, get the brake pads in the front side over there and on this side here at the front, and then we can bleed all the brakes out. So making brake lines is it's quite a simple process to make brake lines. You basically just need one of these little tools. It's a flaring tool, and then you just match up your old line that you took out with the bit that you want to make, so you get the right length, and like sort of bend it to shape like that. And then obviously we have to fish ours up over the fuel tank so we can finish ours off properly in the car. But what we want to do is just get the end flared out like that, nicely. And obviously that will crush up nicely and make a nice seal in the car. I do have an in-depth video on making brake lines, so if you want to know how to do that, you can go and check that out. I want to get this car back on the road and through its MOT as soon as possible, so I'm not filming all of this in mega detail. One little top tip I would say though is make sure you put that on before you flare the end of it. Just flare the other side of this big one. Just basically use a spanner and you just wind in the punch. Simple as that. So if you want a close-up of what a good flare looks like, it should look like that, but the nut shouldn't get twisted on the line. It should just be able to move freely, so when you go to tighten up, you're not twisting the line or anything. and then you want the end to be a nice round uniform shape that's going to seal well inside the hose. So we're just going to get our hose fitted up here. There's a little indent here that goes in this little relief here in the bottom, so you can slide that in from the back side. There we go. And now we just want to get our line all gemmed up and fitted into the back of the wheel cylinder. So this is how we should be looking. We've got this here, we've popped our clip back in, and then this part here, again, it's got that little indent on the bottom of the tab and 2 flat spots, and it just slides into that bracket, and then you put the clip through on this side. I'm going to leave mine loose so I can wiggle it from side to side a little bit. Just helps me to get the thread started when I eventually bring our hard pipe around here, and then once the hard pipe is started a few threads, then I will get that in there and get the little C-clip in there. So you can see here, nice new brake line, nicely fitted, nicely secured, not going anywhere, everything nice and solid. And then I've routed this around the back of this, bit of suspension, and then it kind of goes up to the top of the fuel tank. It doesn't go over the fuel tank, it just kind of goes up that way. And then there's a clip just in here that the brake line sits in, which is a bit difficult to see there. And then it goes into the back of the proportioning valve here, which you can just see through the spring. And that's it. Now all that's left to do is just bleed these rear brakes, and then they're done. So just serviced our bracket, put some new pads in there, greased all the hardware, greased all the slide pins and stuff as well. Now we're just going to get this bolted back up. Oh yeah, time for some controversy. I'm going to put some grease on the face of the piston where it's going to hit the pad, and then I'm going to do the same thing here. Not everybody does this, some people do. I do. I think it makes a difference. There we go. Slip that over the pads. More controversy. Don't always put Loctite on the top. Some car manufacturers have it as standard, some don't. As far as I know, and I could be wrong, I've never seen a K11 Micra with thread lock on these bolts, ever. But I could be wrong. If you've seen one with thread lock, I'm sure you'll let me know. These little snug down. There we go. Right, now what we need to do is put the wheel on. Oh no, we need to bleed the brakes first, then we can put the wheel on, take out the stands and all that kind of stuff. But that's fitted now, so now all of the brake work essentially is done. We just need to get on with the bleeding of the brakes. Pop off that. There we go. There we go. Just connect that up. Now we just let it gravity bleed for a while. In the rush to get to the MOT, I kind of stopped filming, so all I did was bleed it. You just put that bit of hose from the bleed nipple on the caliper down into a little bottle of anything, just a container to catch it in, and then you just keep pumping the pedal and just keep watching until you see no more air bubbles coming out. And as long as the one end stays submerged in brake fluid, that's it. Job done. No more air can go back up into the system. She's bled, everything works nicely, all the brakes are beautiful, and she has 1 more year's MOT. So they get harder and harder to keep on the road as they get older. This one here also needed a fair bit of welding doing to it, among other things. But it was the wife's first car, so we're going to keep it on the road for as long as possible. Sentimental attachment will do that to you, won't it?